1994. By the way, shout out to the Madden community for posting this mod on Discord. Shout out to C on Discord. I wish you could see the person's full name on Discord, but for some reason they don't let you see that. But anyway, shout out to C on Discord for posting this mod. Absolute legendary mod. 1994 NFL. Which, to be honest, long time ago. And as a Bengals fan, the 90s were not very nice to us. We went through absolute heckin' back. Barry Sanders, man. If I could actually see Barry live, that would be amazing. Like, actually be able to watch him now would be absolutely amazing. Got Brett Favre, got Reggie White, but yeah, the 90s were the worst time in Cincinnati Bengals history, so it's not fond years to remember if you're a Bengals fan. Every other thing is very fond nowadays with Joe Burrow, but yeah. Anyway, so I think, 90s was right after our Super Bowls. This is 94, obviously. Jags were not a team. Panthers were not a team. Ravens were not a team. Ravens wouldn't get back to a team to 96. So I want to say 94. We did draft a quarterback, Kingler. Yeah, we drafted him in 92, and I know 93, the 6th pick overall. We got Schroeder here, okay. Who else we got? James Francis, Dan Wilkinson. Okay. Carl Pickens, amazing receiver in the end here. Great receiver across the board. All right, Tim Crumley, okay, he is 34 at this point, but Hall of Fame D tackle. Hall of Fame D tackle there. Anyway, we got Bruce Smith. We got John Elway, this absolute goated Denver Broncos unit. If the Denver Broncos don't win the Super Bowl in this video today, I'll be heavily surprised. R.I.P. Junior Seau. I'll be heavily surprised if they do not win the Super Bowl here. So this is when Joe Montana actually went over to Kansas City. He went from the 49ers to the Chiefs because the 49ers went with Steve Young. So they moved on from Joe Montana and went with Steve Young. 94 would actually be the 2 years before the last Super Bowl for the Cowboys when they won in 96. And in 95 was the 49ers. So this actual season was the Niners Super Bowl win. Well, actually, no, 94 season, 95 Super Bowl win. So, and who's the quarterback for the Jets? Boomer! Yeah, that's right. After leaving us, he went to the Jets. I kind of forgot about that. But then we ended up getting, at this time, Shake and Bake. We got Shake and Bake. Oh, Shake and Blake. Not Shake and Bake. Shake and Blake. We got him from the Jets. So it's ironically enough. They took Boomer. We got Shake and Blake. And then we ended up eventually settling for Shake and Blake forever until around the 2000s when we drafted Achilles Smith and then proceeded to go with Ken Anderson. Not Ken Anderson. Why could I not think of the guy's name? Ken Anderson was before that. The guy he was on the Seahawks quarterback. I can't remember his name for some reason. But yeah. Anyway. Why can't Kitna, John Kitna, who was on Seattle's roster, also on the Jets, I believe, at one point. And then he ended up going to he came to us and played with us until 2003 when we took Carson Palmer. And then the rest is history. Anyway, sorry for the very depressing backstory of the Cincinnati Bengals, but that's, the 90s was not a great time to be a Bengals fan, okay? It was paper bag era. Anyway, if you do not know, I do have a Cincinnati Bengals football channel. We upload 3 videos every single day. Even in June, we're uploading 3 videos every single day on my Bengals channel. It's called First Stop Bengals. So we upload daily content on that channel. Even though it's June, we are still rocking and rolling. We've done it for forever now. But as always, there is no Week 18 in this franchise series because Week 18 did not exist back in the day. So let's skip past week 18 and let's look at our final stats. So in the end, the Bills was the best team. Was it 93 or 94? One of these years, the Bills would lose their last Super Bowl to the Cowboys. Because what? The Bills lost to the Giants, the Redskins, and then the Cowboys twice. Man, you know what I always wonder about the Bills? At what point, if you're a Bills fan, right, and you've been a Bills fan since the 90s, right, when you lost all the 4 Super Bowls back in the day, at what point did you guys just give up? Like, was it after the first Super Bowl loss, you're like, all right, we suck, we're not going to do it? Second Super Bowl loss in a row? Third? Or fourth? I feel like at some point, even though you're going to the Super Bowl, you're just like, yeah, no, we don't have a chance. Like, I don't know. I feel like as fans, even though some point you're just like, it's not going to happen. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bengals have lost 3 Super Bowls. So, I get the pain. 2 49ers Super Bowls and a Rams Super Bowl, so. But I feel like at some point, if you make it to 4 Super Bowls back to back to back, at some point, you're just going into it like, yup, this is it. Like, we're not going to win this. Or you're just like, you know what? This is the time. Almost 2,000 yards for Barry Sanders is kind of crazy. Kind of insane, to be honest. Robert Massey. Interesting. Who won MVP? Steve Young. Nope. Steve Young was number 3. Jim Kelly. Okay. Again, speaking of that, quarterback that lost all 4. Oh, man. All right. Wild card round. The Niners beat the New York Giants. Who was the Giants quarterback in 94? Dave Brown? Okay. And then, yeah, that's right, Elvis Grbac. Elvis Grbac would eventually leave the Niners and go over to the Baltimore Ravens. And he was actually the quarterback after they won the Super Bowl. Because the Ravens were the first team, as they lose the Lions here, the first team to win a Super Bowl and then cut their starting quarterback, Trent Dilfer. So after that, they went with Tony Banks and they went with Elvis Grbac. And then, obviously, eventually found themselves in 2006 going with a quarterback named Kyler Bowler, which would not be the guy. And then they would go with Steve McNair, R.I.P. Steve McNair, and eventually find themselves with a third-string quarterback from Delaware in Joseph Flacco. Who would get the starting role because Troy Smith and Kyle Bowler would get hurt. Troy Smith actually got sick, and then Kyle Bowler broke his thumb. I don't know why I'm giving you guys such a long history lesson of football right now, but, my brain is just in that, you know what? I'm going to narrate this. I also low-key love the actual, Super Bowl thing. That's why I love the Madden modding community, by the way, because they do all these little extra details. But yeah. See, the one thing I know about, my football knowledge goes really far when it comes to just random knowledge like that. That's where I'm like, oh, this is what I know. This is my football knowledge. The Bills won the Super Bowl. Well, hold up. I didn't, process that. The Bills actually won the Super Bowl. We just watched history. Not only that, MMG would be absolutely destroyed to watch his Lions go to the Super Bowl and lose to the Bills. Both teams with 0 Super Bowl wins finally figuring it out. See you guys next one, though. Peace.